Hello friends, I welcome you all to Tech Academy. Yesterday we discussed on the basic principles of how the HTTP requests goes into consideration, and yesterday we also discussed the behavior of browser, what is the importance of HTML engine, CSS engine and JavaScript engine. And we are actually discussing on Angular. So today let's see what an Angular framework is all about. In today's session, we will try to understand what Angular is, Angular framework, how to install Angular, and our first Angular command. So without wasting time, let's start. So as discussed, we will be discussing on Angular framework. So first of all, let us try to understand what framework is. In basic sense, framework is a platform within which any software is provided to end users. So framework is a platform within which any software, any technology is provided to end users. Here end users means developers. There are two types of frameworks. One is community, the other one is paid, or we can call it as an enterprise. So community is also known as open source. We'll discuss on this open source as well. So framework is a platform within which the software is provided to developers for developing any sort of applications within the framework. These frameworks are of two categories. One is open source, the other one is enterprise. Open source are also termed as community editions. Is Angular an open source framework? Yes, Angular is an open source framework. And remember, these questions may be also asked in interviews. The very second thing that we would like to discuss today is about what is the architecture behind an Angular. So, before going into that, the architecture principles of Angular application, let us try to understand one concept which is called as SPA. So SPA here stands for single page application. So let's go to C++ languages. Okay, as per Dennis Ritchie, any application that is built, any technology that is built as part of software, there should be one entry point for the software to be initiated, the objects of the software to be created, the objects of the applications that we are going to create must be initiated. So for that, there should be only one entry point. So for example, if we take in .NET, okay, and if I create a console application, I will find a main with some args. So this main program is the entry point for whatever code that I would like to write in my technology. Same is the case with any front-end web application. Any front-end web application should have one entry point. That entry point for any web application which is front-end technology starts with SPA, single page application. As we discussed yesterday, To know Angular, we should know HTML. Okay, to know Angular, we should know HTML. And for any web application, there should be one page which is the starting point. And then suppose if I have any menus here, any links here, if I click on this link or menu, it will now redirect me to other pages, so on and so forth. The beauty of Angular application is it is a single page application wherein there is only one HTML page. Only one HTML page, then how can I create links which will load other pages? And within that page, I want to show a grid, a text box, a button. How these things are actually manipulated? These things are actually handled via a technology called single page application technology. Can we call it as a pattern? It is a pattern wherein a single HTML, for example, index.html is loaded into my client machine, that is my browser, and whatever actions that is taken via my application development, those actions are actually reloaded into this page without refreshing the browser. So what actually happens is, as we discussed yesterday, when there is a call to the server, okay, when there is a call to the server, the response comes back. So this is called as a round trip, as we discussed yesterday. During this round trip, the page actually refreshes. Suppose I have a link here, I clicked here, and I want to load some data with respect to how many students are enrolled into this session. Then I will make a call to the server will give me the response, the page actually loads. So sometimes we also call this as wait time. The request and the response, which is being sent by server as part of round trip, is also termed as wait time. Single page applications does not have, it works in this scenario only. The scenario is same, but the wait time is minimized. Why that is minimized? Because there is only one HTML, and within the HTML, suppose there is a page 1 loaded, okay, and now I want to load page 2. What happens is, this page 1 is destroyed and this page 2 is generated. And we will understand this destroy and generation concept as part of Angular page lifecycle. How actually Angular works within the SPA and destroys and regenerates a new page as part of its page lifecycle. Okay, I hope this is understood. So Angular is an open source technology, front-end technology, and it is also SPA in nature. So what does SPA stands for? It stands for single page application, wherein there is only one entry point for the page to get loaded into the browser. That entry point is denoted as index.html. All other components that I am developing as part of SPA are previous object is destroyed and a new object is created. So this is the background behind an SPA and open source. This can be an interview question. Is Angular SPA? Yes. And if yes, what do we mean by SPA? Hope this is clear. Now, coming to Angular framework architecture. Most of the time we heard that Angular is an MVC based architecture, wherein it is a model, a view, and a controller. So what do we mean by model, view, controller is, a model is a class, is an object where I will be storing the properties. So when I say a class, for example, user, name is a property, age is a property, gender is a property. So this class user is having these properties. So these properties can be public in nature or private in nature. So a model, and we call model as a contract, or sometimes we call it as data transfer object. Why an object? It is a class. A class is an object. If you want, we can discuss on object-oriented programming synopsis also in future sessions. So a class is an object and a model is a contract, which is also known as data transfer object. So here name property will hold the name of the user. So it is the data. When I instantiate this class, it transfers the property values within this object. So this is called as a model. A model is a contract. A contract is also known as DTA. Now what is a view? A view is a page where actually I am looking at the what actually I have developed. I have developed some button, I have developed some text box, I have a grid or some other table information. I can see this within the view. So a view actually is connected to this data transfer objects to load the property values. So here this is property. For example, the property is name, and name equals to some XYZ. This value can be displayed here, XYZ. So this is called as coupling of model with view. Coupling. Now, what is a controller? A controller is a common factory within which all the data, see, for example, I have created a class and now I want to get the value within this class, name, which is there in my database. A controller actually has the privilege to get connected to other sources and get these property values binded to the model class. And then these model values can be represented as view. So this is about Angular framework architecture. But do you really think Angular is MVC based? What I suggest is Angular is actually partial MVC based, but not fully MVC based. Then what Angular architecture is? What is the main principles that drives behind Angular architecture? So we can say that Angular is partial MVC. This can be an interview question. Is Angular MVC based architecture? The answer should be it is partially MVC, but not fully. Then what is Angular architecture all about? So Angular architecture is all about MVVM. Let us try to understand what MVVM. As we discussed now, M stands for model, V stands for view, and again V stands for view, and then model. We actually say that these are four different concepts. These are four: model, view, view, model. But that is wrong. It is model, view, and then view, model. There are only three categories within this model, view, model architecture. It is a model, which we discussed, a view, which we discussed, and then a view model. Let us try to understand. See, instead of C, which I said MVC, it is a controller which has the capabilities to connect to other services and get the data. Same is the case with view model. And Angular is MVVM based architecture. Let us try to understand MVVM. So M is a model which has properties, and once connected to other sources or any, these properties can be set to a value. There will be values which can be set to these properties. View is a HTML template. View is a HTML template which actually represents the view to the end user. See, here end user is a client is a browser. Now view model is what we have to understand. So here, instead of controller, for Angular we have view model based principles. So view model has three categorizations. The first one is all about component. The second one is about event handling. The third one we'll discuss. Now let us try to understand component. In view model, as we discussed previously, I have a page P1, I want to load P2. What actually happens is, this page 1 is destroyed and a page 2 is created within the same index.html. What is the engine that drives this is Angular engine, which is CLI. We'll discuss CLI also, which is built on top of JavaScript framework. Okay, so now this page is destroyed and a new page is created. Every page is called as a component. So view model is a component within which there are event handlers. So what are event handlers? What is an event? For example, I got a message from my friend saying that, hey, today is my birthday, can you please attend? So there is an event hosted by my friend saying that his birthday is scheduled on so day and this is the venue where I have to reach. So an event is a function. An event triggers a function. So here in this case, what events are means, suppose I have a button. On click of this button, I want to fetch the data, or I want to do an API call, or I want to show or hide some components on click of this button. So a click is an event which calls a function. Within this function, we will be writing certain code for the behavior of the component. So this is about event handling. For example, for one more example, I have a text box. I want to restrict the text box to be a numeric only. Then there is an event called as keypress. There is a text box coming out of this. When the focus is coming out of this text box, I should call a function. So it is on blur event. So we are having different kinds of events in JavaScript. Those events are handled in this view model component. So it is model, straightforward contract, view, straightforward HTML template. View model is categorized into three, which is component, event handling. And now let us discuss the third one. The third is all about orchestra. What does orchestra means? Suppose I have a component wherein there is a button, I have to raise an event. I raise that event, it called a function, and then this function returned some values to this event. This event told, hey, I got the value, bind this data, or display this data, or hide this data, or show this data. So this, there is a music started here, it went here, then there is a response came, and then the event got ended, and then the next action took place. So event followed by action, action followed by event, event followed by action. So this is all about orchestra, and it is a architectural design pattern. So Angular framework is first an open source front-end web technology. Second, it supports Spark. Third, it is partially MVC based architecture. And fourth, it is fully MVVM based architecture. And MVVM is categorized into three, which is the first one is all about, speaks about component. The second speaks about event handling and how this orchestra is being maintained. I hope we understood the framework behind Angular technology. Now we will be looking at something called as the basic installation process of Angular into my system. For example, we learned about Angular framework, Angular in other technology, what Angular is all about, other things. Now let us try to understand how to get this framework into my local machine for me to go ahead and develop some beautiful web pages. To install Angular into our applications, we need some open source softwares. The first one which I recommend is Visual Studio Code, which is a freeware and not a firmware. This is also firmware means enterprise level, freeware means open source community. This software is needed. The second software which we need is Node.js. We'll discuss on Node.js also. The third is about Angular CLI. So CLI stands for Command Line Interface. We'll discuss in depth on command line interface once we complete the installation process of Angular into our local box. Visual Studio Code is an editor within which we can write Angular code, and we can see the output using browser. The second one is all about Node.js. So Node.js is again an open source platform. It is again an open source platform which acts as a server for JavaScript framework applications. So do you mean that Node.js is needed only for Angular? For example, let us take three front-end technologies. The first one is about Angular, the second is React, third is Vue.js. These three front-end technologies are built on top of JavaScript framework. So anything which I built on, any technology which is built on top of JavaScript framework, do I need Node.js to be installed? The answer is yes. Any front-end technology that is built on top of JavaScript framework, Node.js has to be installed. And Node.js acts as a server for making this application, means the page life, to make the page life cycle of this application run smooth and confidently. So we need Visual Studio Code as our editor for development. we need Node.js as part of our server. We need Angular CLI for getting this Angular into my local box. So now we will see how to install these things into my local box. Okay. So I'll reconnect again once we complete the process of installation, and then we will discuss on Angular CLI and our first command of Angular.